Have you ever stopped to think about how much control you truly have over your actions and decisions? Are we really the masters of our own fate, making choices free from influence? Or are we subtly shaped by forces beyond our awareness? Free will is the ability to make choices that aren't entirely determined by prior causes or external pressures. But how often do we really exercise this free will? When you really examine your choices, how many are truly free and how many are swayed by your environment? This is a question that has fascinated philosophers, psychologists, and scientists for centuries. The debate about free will is as old as human thought itself, and it continues to provoke intense discussion today. Some argue that we're entirely free agents, capable of making intentional, independent choices, whilst others insist that we're largely influenced or even controlled by forces that we cannot see. So today we're asking the question, do we really have complete free will? To explore this, we'll look into four major thinkers: Jean-Paul Sartre, Sigmund Freud, Carl Rogers, and B.F. Skinner. As we journey through these varying viewpoints, we'll uncover just how complex the question really is and how the truth may lie somewhere in between. So let's start with our bold existentialist, Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre suggested that we are condemned to be free. He argued that existence comes before essence, so we aren't born with a predetermined purpose. We define ourselves through our actions. In Sartre's view, no matter the circumstance, we always have choice. We may feel limited by society, by upbringing, or even by our emotions, but we are still responsible for how we respond. And with this radical freedom comes something that Sartre called anguish. It's the anxiety that comes from knowing every decision we make helps to shape us into the people we are. This is the emotional weight of freedom, the knowledge that we alone are responsible for our actions. And with this responsibility comes fear, doubt, and the burden of self-definition. So in Sartre's view, free will isn't only real, it's absolute. We alone are accountable for our lives. But while Sartre focuses on conscious decision-making, Sigmund Freud brings us into the shadows of the unconscious mind. Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, was infamous for his controversial Oedipus and Electra complex theories. But despite his turbulent reputation, he offers a particularly intriguing perspective on free will. He believed that much of our behavior is shaped by hidden, unconscious forces. He divided the mind into the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. And it is in the unconscious where repressed memories, unresolved conflicts, and primal desires operate, often without our awareness. This hidden part of our mind is not passive. It's actively shaping our thoughts and actions in ways that we can't fully comprehend. He also introduced the id, the ego, and the superego, three forces constantly in conflict within us. The id craves instant gratification, the superego upholds moral ideals, and the ego struggles to balance them. From Freud's perspectives, our decisions may seem free, but they're usually the result of deeper psychological battles that we don't fully understand. Our actions are just manifestations of which force, the id or the superego, managed to overpower the ego. So, in short, Freud believed that much of our free will is an illusion. We are shaped by the past, by trauma, and by internal conflict. But while Freud focuses on the unconscious, Carl Rogers shifts our attention back to conscious experience and personal growth. As a leading figure in humanistic psychology, which is a perspective that emphasizes a holistic approach to the psychology of every individual, Rogers believed that we all have an innate drive towards self-actualization, which is the realization of our true potential. His theory emphasizes that people can make free, authentic choices, but only when they're under the right conditions. He argued that free will best flourishes in an environment of unconditional positive regard, where we're accepted without judgment. In such relationships, we feel safe to explore who we really are and make authentic choices that are aligned with our true selves. So Rogers offers us a hopeful view, one where free will is real, but it's fragile. It depends on the relationships and environments that we grow up in. And then comes B.F. Skinner, who challenges the idea of freedom altogether. As a behaviorist, Skinner believed that what we perceive as free will is just a result of conditioning. Through operant conditioning, we learn to repeat behaviors that are rewarded and avoid those that are punished. In Skinner's world, our actions are not freely chosen. They're responses to a history of reinforcement. Whether it's scrolling through social media, forming new habits, or even making major life decisions, we're not making conscious decisions, we're responding to patterns. Behavior, he believed, could be predicted and controlled. And if it could be controlled, it could be engineered. Skinner believed that by shaping environments, we could shape behavior intentionally and effectively. To him, understanding behavior wasn't about unlocking the truth regarding freedom. It was about creating order. So where does that leave us? On the one hand, we have Sartre reminding us that we alone are responsible for our actions, whilst on the other, we have figures like Skinner and Freud emphasizing the importance of both external and internal forces on our decision-making. And then we have Rogers, who sits somewhere in the middle, offering us a view where free will is possible, but only when given the right conditions. And maybe that's the key takeaway. We do have free will, but it's not absolute. Our biology, our upbringing, and our unconscious desires all shape the options we see and the choices that we make. Free will exists, but it exists within a framework. And sometimes that framework limits us, and other times it empowers us. But the more we understand about these forces, the better equipped we are to make conscious, intentional decisions. So, take the following arguments into account when making your next decision. Think of Sartre and his belief that that decision will contribute to shaping you into the person you are. Think of Freud and his theory that the decision you come to is representative of unconscious desires, and reflect on what those may be. Think of Skinner and his argument that your actions are just a result of the conditioning you grew up around. And finally, take Rogers' advice, and that you cannot have free will or self-actualize unless you're around people who unconditionally love you. Because we may not control the hand we're dealt, but we do have some power in how we play it. Thank you.